Hello YouTube, Dave here again. I was checking out some of the local game stores in my area when I saw something I honestly didn't even think existed. And that is the Dungeon Master screen from Gale Force 9 for the Ghost of Saltmarsh adventure book. Basically, this is entitled The Dungeon Master Screen of Ships and the Sea. And honestly, I just haven't really been following the Gale Force 9 products much as of late. Once I saw that they were doing the like the NPC cards, and that they had separated the monsters that had legendary actions, anything above challenge rating 16, into its own separate deck, meaning that to get a Beholder, which should have fallen into the 6 to 16 monster set that I had to buy another set of cards, I kind of checked out on a lot of the stuff that they were offering. Like I said, I'm just not a big fan of having things split up, way too much in a way that just feels kind of obvious that they're trying to milk it for as much as they can. Personal opinion, but anyway, I still love DM screens, so I've always been a sucker for them, and I have most of the ones that have been put out by Gale Force 9. The only one that I'm missing of the ones that I'm really interested in getting is the Horde of the Dragon Queen screen. There is supposed to be one for Waterdeep Dragon. No, I had the Waterdeep Dragon Heist one. Sorry, there's supposed to be one, I think, for Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and I would love to pick that one up as well. But I've never seen that one anywhere. Other than that, I do have all the other screens now. Anyway, so this one, like I said, I wasn't really expecting. It was just kind of under the radar for me. But I'm interested to see what's in here. At a quick, guess, I would say there's probably going to be like the deck plans for the ship will probably take up like the center part of the screen, and then there might be some charts for encounters or naval combat rules. But we'll see what we got here. I paid $17.95 Canadian for this. I'm not quite sure what the retail US price is. I would assume probably around $13 to $14.99. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get the plastic off this and see what we've got. Alright, so the plastic is off. So here we just have the cover page with the UPC code and like the little marketing information there. I always like to keep these. I know that there's a lot of people that will just toss these out, but the collector in me likes to have as many of these as I can possibly remember to hold on to. So this is just going to get set aside. And the first thing we'll do is just take a look at the artwork. And so what we got here, we're just going to look at the first two. So these are sort of the middle panels. This is one of the landscape style Game Master screens, or Dungeon Master screens. Since we're talking about actual Dungeons and Dragons, I can use that term. So here we have, this is the cover art from the Ghost of Saltmarsh adventure. So this is the exact same art that's on like the front and back cover. And the alternate cover that they had for Hobby Store exclusive actually had basically it had the Sahagin right up close, reaching towards the reader, I guess you could say, and that was actually this scene here from the archer's point of view. So you kind of see how close that thing actually was to the archer. And in the background here we have what looks like, I guess, a giant kraken. I always try to imagine that it's actually like Cthulhu, because I love the Cthulhu mythos, but this is just a big kraken, but it's still really cool art nonetheless. Alright, we'll just flip it over here to see the outside panels. The first one is actually, apologize for the glare. So the first one looks like the Sahagin throne, and you've got one of the royal. I can't remember what his actual title was. I think he was a prince of the Sahagin people for the Secrets of Saltmarsh story arc. And so that's a really nice looking painting there, really cool looking. But this one here is actually probably my favorite of the panels that we have here. This is just an aquatic scene. You've got like really colorful coral. You have what looks like a sea elf diving down, or a water genasi. You've got a shark over here, and sharks are awesome. And then you've got just a big old whale. So pretty cool stuff there. So now the question is on the inside, how right am I about it having like the ship deck plan and like encounter charts. So we'll take a look here. It could also have the Salt Marsh region map. Actually, that might be kind of useful as well. So let's open this up. And nope, I was way off. All right, so just give me a second here. All right, so we'll go on the panels from left to right. So the leftmost panel is all about random ship generation. And this is actually a pretty cool chart. Just looking at it here quickly, if I were to run a campaign that had a lot of nautical travel, this would be something that I would probably use, maybe not at the table, like roll randomly as things are going on, but as I'm preparing for the session, I could see rolling up some random ship information and using it for like role-playing or potentially combat opportunities. So the first chart that you have is to determine what kind of ship it is that's encountered. It can be like a rowboat, keelboat, longship, sailing ship, galley, or warship. Then you've got its purpose, which is like cargo, passenger ship, fishing ship, military, piracy, mercenary, or ghost ship. And then you can roll for the ship's attitude, which can either be on a d6, it can either be friendly, neutral, or hostile. And depending on which one of those you got, there's a chart for friendly ships to determine what the predominant race is on board. The same thing for neutral, and then for hostile, which is pretty cool. There is a random name generator or chart that you can use. Just roll a couple of d20, and you can get like the random names for the ships. So, for example, you can get like the Cold Kraken, the Jolly Mermaid, the Red Jester. I mean, there's just all kinds of interesting combinations that you can get just with this chart itself, which is pretty cool. And then you also have sort of like nicknames for crew member that you can do randomly as well. So one individual, for example, could be, Mad Dog, or, Black Fingers, which it's kind of weird. But anyway, there's some cool stuff that you can do with that. And I always like the random name generators because I'm terrible with coming up with names. So having that on the screen is something that I've made quite a bit of use out of name generators on the original 5th edition screen as well. So the next part of the panel here has ship disposition. So it says here, each ship has a disposition that determines events happening aboard the ship when the characters encounter it. You can choose or roll for a ship's disposition on the following table. Each of those is described below, and if you roll no special disposition, the ship is under no unusual stress and reacts based on its attitude. So the dispositions are diseased, emergency, help with purpose, mutiny, trading, or again, like the no special one. And then it gives the descriptions down here. So I'm just going to scroll through those. If you want to pause and read what those do, you certainly can. I'll just go over the emergency one because there's a little bit of additional stuff with that as well. So a ship experiencing an emergency is suffering some sort of crisis. The crew and passengers beg or demand the character's help in getting out of the situation. Choose or roll from the emergency or for an emergency on the ship emergency table to determine the vessel's crisis. So the crisis could be the ship's crew is lost, the ship is damaged and can't be steered as it drifts with the current, stuck on a sandbar, or that it's sinking. Some cool stuff there. And again, you've got other information there. The second screen in from the left is just a series of encounter charts. So you've got encounters for open ocean or open water encounters for levels 1 through 4, another chart for levels 5 through 10, and then a third chart for levels 11 through 20. And so you can get like a ancient bronze dragon, a ship, a mysterious island, which would be pretty cool. And like dragon turtle, hydras. There's just all kinds of interesting things, and this is something that, again, if you're running in a campaign or even an adventure that has a lot of ocean travel or sea travel, then this would be a really useful screen to have as well. So that is the second from the left. So the third from the left, or second from the right. And actually, so the other half of the screen is all connected into one. And this is all about hazards. So we'll just zoom in a little bit here. Alright. Alright, so hazards. A group check determines how the officers and crew fare against various hazards. The check's DC is randomly determined or chosen from the relevant DC table. Important officers each make an ability check as shown on the relevant checks table. And whoops, I lost my place there. On the relevant checks table, if no one makes the check for a particular officer, a failure is contributed toward the group check. Also roll a d20 for the crew using its quality score as a modifier to the roll and compare the check to the DC. Determine how many of the group's checks succeeded. The officers and the crews then consult the relevant check results table. So we've got like the hazard types could be crew conflict, fire, fog, storm, or infestation. And then the DC's range go from 10 to 25 and 5 increments of 5. And then you have crash damage, which I guess there are probably situations where it can crash. And the size of the ship determines how much, I guess, damage it takes. I would imagine that's what that's for. It would probably specify on the things that actually would utilize. But anyway, we then have the breakdown of the various conflicts. So crew conflict, fire, fog, infestation, or storm. So let's just look at the crew conflict one. Because these are all basically the same organization. So what we have here is the crew conflict DC. So again, it goes from like 10, 15, 20, 25. So DC 10 would be a minor scuffle or a petty theft. DC 15, a brawl involving several people or theft of a valuable item. Large brawl large brawl resulting in several injuries or the theft of a prized item would be a DC 20 for the group check. And then DC 25 and would basically be like a murder or a serious brawl involving most of the crew. The crew conflict checks, so the captain makes a charisma intimidation check. The first mate also makes a charisma intimidation check. And the cook makes an intelligence brewer supply. So I guess the cook tries to placate everybody by getting them drunk, which might be how the conflict started in the first place, but we're not going to worry about that, I guess. And then we have the results. So if there's a total success, meaning that all parties involved succeeded, the crew's quality score increases by 1 for 1d4 days, and the hazard ends. If you just get a success, which I think is half the group or more, the hazard ends. If you fail, the crew's quality score decreases by 1. And if you totally fail, the crew's quality score decreases by 1, and the crew immediately mutinies, which seems pretty rough. And then, like I said, the other ones, fire, fog, infestation, and storm, just give you the same information. So what members of the crew can make the various checks, and what the checks are, and the results based off of total success, just a regular success, or if you have failure or total failure. So overall, this is a pretty cool screen. Now, that said, where this is sort of tied into the Ghosts of Saltmarsh campaign, the question has to be, how useful is this with that particular campaign? How vital is it to running that campaign? And I would have to say that it's really not necessarily super useful for if the adventures run out of that book, unless you're incorporating a lot of sea-based travel into into those adventures. There's a lot of useful information on this screen, but oddly enough, one thing that really feels like it's missing is information on how to generate the crew's quality score and what the different levels or different heights or lows of that score, like what it means. Like, for example, what's a normal quality score? If it reaches, let's just say, if it reaches like 5 or 10, what happens then? If it gets down to 1, or even if can it go into the negatives, what happens then? So that, I think, would have been really useful information. Mainly because I see the crew's quality score referenced a few times on the hazards chart alone. Like crew conflict has it, the fire has it, the fog has it as well. Looks like they all actually reference the crew's quality score. So having that information on there, how to get that number and what the various levels of quality score, what they mean, I think is something that really should have been on this screen. You could have had it take up, this section here a little bit. You could have had it down below. You could have had it somewhere down here. There had to have been a way to fit it into the screen. As much as it's nice to see some of this art, I would really honestly rather have just smaller pictures, like this one here, for example, and have all the information that I need to utilize everything that's on this screen. So right now there's that one major piece of information that feels like it's completely missing. But other than that, if you are going to be running ocean-based campaigns or sea-based campaigns, and you're going to have a lot of ship travel, and there are entire campaigns that revolve around that, this is going to be a really useful screen, I think, to have. There's some great things that you can do with it to create, again, to create a whole session out of. You can have the players encounter a random ship. They may have some sort of special thing, like they may be in a state of emergency. They may be a trading ship where the players can acquire some new equipment. You could have like the encounters with creatures and some hazards thrown in. So there's a whole lot that you can really do with this screen, which is awesome. It's just a shame that that one thing is missing. It's also, like I said, it doesn't feel like it is really vital to have this to run the Ghosts of Saltmarsh campaign, and this really doesn't feel like it's meant for the straight adventures themselves, but more like interludes between adventures, or if you continue on after them. Like, there's no map of the Saltmarsh region, which would have been really useful to have on a screen that you have connected to the actual particular adventure, which a lot of the other GM screens will have like a map that's connected to the adventure in them. So it's a little bit of a shame that that's not there. I still am happy with this overall, and I actually do want to run a sea-based campaign, or not necessarily sea-based, but I would like to run a revised or updated version for 5th edition of the Savage Tide Adventure Path, which was the last adventure path put in Dungeon magazines, at least in the physically printed versions. And there's at least a few adventures where ocean travel is like the main part of those adventures. So this would be great to have for that. Other than that, this will probably end up just going up on the shelf and will be very, very sparingly used. Cool for the collection, not what I would consider an essential or vital pickup unless you've got a campaign that revolves heavily around the characters spending time on ships on the open sea. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. Let me know in the comments below if you have this screen. Have you been using it for your adventures? Has it helped you with your Ghosts of Saltmarsh campaign, if you've been using it for that? Or how has it helped you with just running campaigns where the players may be traveling on ships? Because I'd really love to know that. Anyway, thank you guys again, like I said, for watching. I appreciate all the support, and I will see you next time. Take care.